This is probably very close to the 60 I will play going into Utah. Yo, what up, guys? Welcome to Faded Town, number one Pokemon podcast in the world. You already know this. I ain't gotta say it, even though I say it every week. But if you don't know, I don't know where you've been. I know we've been away, but we always come back. Don't worry, guys. But yeah, we're number one Pokemon podcast. We give you all the great info you need. Mondays, Tuesdays, earlier in the week, I'm gonna be solo dolo, talking how I'm testing, what I'm doing to get my invite, steps for more of a grindy player, someone that's not going to go to every regional, someone that's going to grind their way into an invite. So yeah, I'll give you my kind of insight on that. On Thursdays, every week, we're going to do a Pokemon breakdown with some of the top players in the world: Rahul, Xander, Bennett Kennett, John Ang, whoever. I mean, anyone. You can never know, man. Never know who's going to show up on that. So, but mostly, Rahul will probably be there almost all the time. So, tune in for that. If you haven't already, subscribe down below so you don't miss anything. Leave a comment, like. That stuff always helps. I answer all the comments. I appreciate all the likes. But yeah. Thanks for coming, guys. This is great. We're here to talk about, we got Salt Lake City, I don't know, at the end of the week, this Saturday. Last week we talked about how the next 2 weeks of watching the meta develop is very important, and it has been. These online tournaments have been crazy. You see little rips of stuff that's going on. And I'm kind of want to just talk about where I'm going, what I'm playing, how I've been testing, and just show you kind of the steps I've been taking. So, going into Peoria, I was testing Zoroark, and I felt Zoroark was very good. I feel like it's very fast. It's fun. It also has like really some of like the coolest Pokemon. Oh, well, some of my favorite Pokemon and the deck's good. And I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna test this, see how it is. I felt it was doing pretty well in my testing, and then but again, we're gonna see how Peoria goes. And with Peoria ending, there was a handful of Zoroark in day 2. So with that happening and looking at what won, stuff, I still decided that Zoroark was good enough to keep testing and committing to. So I kind of want to show you guys like how my testing's been going. So right here are just these are Zoroark lists that I've taken off lemon list, and then I have my own list that I've been working on. So there was one that made top 8. So this is kind of how I do it. I started out with my own list, obviously going into Peoria, and then we get a lot of information from Peoria. We get what won, what are the top decks in the meta that are in the top 8 and doing very well, and then you get list of decks that you are playing. So I have 4 decks that were in the top, I think, 64 that are all Zoroark lists, and they're all kind of different. They're all kind of different, which is kind of cool because Zoroark gives you a lot of freedom to kind of build around. So going into Peoria, I was playing a lot of... I was playing for Barrel. I had the Beavers in my list. I was drawing cards. That way I felt it was really good. I was also playing Bennett, which was like be a seeker, get your card back stuff. But what we found out after Peoria is how good Lost Box was and how good um, Sableye was just doing the 120. So these low HP Pokemon were just getting eaten by them. So if we look at, we'll start with the top 8 list. This list right here got top 8. And if we look at it, it doesn't play any of the Barbarrel engine. It doesn't have any, like, it's very niche. These, like, Dunsparce, you're only putting it down versus fighting Pokemon. This is really good in, like, the mirror. This is good against 3 prizers. These are good when you need them, you know. Bench damage, you know. So these aren't like bench sitters that will sit on your bench that suck up damage that can be easily KO'd by a 120 spread attack, you know. We see the draw engine is Crobat and Zoroark. And we got 4 research. So seeing that this does so well, you know. It also played Paracells, which stop that bench damage. Or stop the effects of attacks on all your Pokemon. Which Sableye stops Garatina's GX attack. Or Vstar attack. So there was a lot of information to take in here, you know. Like, okay, if we look at what won, which was Towards list, and we watch that, and it does consistently attacking the Sableye doing that, or Cramorant doing the 120 and stuff. You can't have the Barbarrels, you can't have the Bennett. You have this build is just more optimal to deal with that because it takes 2 attacks to kill this, you know. It takes multiple attacks, almost three attacks to kill this if they don't play Snorlax. So you want to fill your bench with these and make plays with Sharon's Care. Picking these Pokemon up. So getting them to attack into that stuff. So that's what this deck, looking at this deck, looking at what won, the biggest threat on the field is definitely Lost Box, you know. You're like, okay, how do we deal with it? How this deck deals with it very well. What I found is the Paracells aren't very good because or what I've come to believe is the Paracells weren't going to be very good anymore because of Towards list playing 3 Vacuum, which gets rid of their tool. Kind of making them very obsolete in that type of matchup. So it's like, okay, I have some more ideas, so we're gonna switch up the list a little bit. We'll test some more, you know. So we switch it up. We get a list similar to this, you know. And then it's worth looking at other stuff. The 10th place list was this weird Mew list, which to this day, I know I got 10th. I understand I got 10th. It did very well at the tournament. I just don't understand this, and I don't understand this. Like, what are we grabbing off of this that is like game changing? You know, it can only get items. So you can't grab your supporters, you can't grab your Pokemon. So like you're grabbing a damage pump, you can't grab you can't even grab a stadium. You're getting your tool off of it, and you're getting Ultra Balls and Level Balls. So I guess you can set up, it helps you set up quicker. But if you don't have a stadium, like all that doesn't really matter. And then you're committing 4 spots to a net. And these have 60 HP. Like, with no defense versus Lost Box. So, like, I've looked at this list and I just decided it can't be good going forward. The Lost Box is gonna be popular. It's gonna be good. And you can't have 60 HP Mews on your bench. That's just giving up 2 prizes. So, I really kind of just weighed this one out. As like, I understand it did good. I personally just don't know how it did so well. Obviously, whoever built this and played it, they played it very well, and they brought it to a 10th place finish, which was great. But I think just going forward, it's not going to be the optimal play. So I kind of just waved this one off. But you have to look at stuff like this when you go into testing. This thing got 10th. It did something well, so it's worth looking to, testing it, seeing how's it going. And then we had Aaron Tarbell's list, which was the double Empoleon list with the water energy. I've been such an anti Empoleon for so long, and I just looking at how the meta developed and towards list winning and the Reggie's lists, like that's what these really thrive on, is trying to stop the flower gift and stop Reggie from setting up. But now they're playing for Path of the Peak, and for Path of the Peak just turn this off and they do whatever they want, and the card just doesn't seem good. So as much as this looks good or did well somewhat, I think the meta shifted to the Empoleon just not being that great. But I'll come back to talking about the Empoleon later, because it does pop back up as like a potential option. But at the beginning of my looking at these decks, I just seeing how the meta developed with all the Path of the Peak, and the escape ropes and all these ways to get around. People were ready for the Empoleon, so making it not very optimal. But we also see this is a pretty standard list. Most of the lists, like the item cards, are pretty much the same all around. This one didn't utilize any Churn Scare. It depended on this to win that matchup, which I think at that tournament it could have. But I think going forward, with towards list having 4 Path of the Peak and people seeing how effective that was, it just wasn't going to be good. And then I want to look at this list. Jimmy Miller's list got 54th. This is the one that I like the most. So this is Jimmy Miller, so he got 54th. And I looked at this list, and I was kind of comparing it to my own list, where I was playing the Bennett, which was like a VS Seeker. I looked at the top 8 list that did really well, and they all had this type of engine where you're just crow-batting and you're Zorking, you're staying away from the barrel because you don't want to give up the free kills to the Sableye. I played the Churn Scare, which I thought was important, and I played Eldergoss. I forgot this card even existed. I was like, the Eldergoss does, because I was finding a lot of success with the way the Bennett was panning out. was like, oh man, this VS Seeker thing is like super strong. And I forgot this card even existed. So when I seen the Elder Goss, I was like, oh, like we have something here, you know? Like this is higher HP Pokemon. It's like the Crobat doesn't have the one shot potential from the Sableye. It also shuffles itself back into the deck. I was like, I like this card a lot. So I was like, I want to play that. Also felt the Lumineon is really good. I felt the versatility of this list, being able to play from the deck with Lumineon and from the discard from Eldegoss was super strong. This deck you like to dump your hands very quickly in this deck. Turn like 1 and 2, you're playing you're V-starring, dumping, drawing 7, and every deck's playing 4 research. So you're trying to set up as quickly as possible. So you're dumping stuff all day. So being able to play from the discard, some of these one-off supporters like Chern's Care or Marnie, I think was very good. So that's where I kind of sat with it. I was like, okay, I like that. Let me build towards it. So I'm gonna show you where I'm at, or where this is probably very close to the 60 I will play going into Utah. Obviously, there's a couple more days. There's a few adjustments that can happen. But I'll show you where I'm at right now. I'll show you, kind of talk about how I got there as well. Because there was some online events where we're going to talk some matchups that become very difficult, some development that happened that we see going forward, and some decisions that as a player I kind of had to make. So this is where we sit at R60. And it does look a lot, it's not a lot different, but there's a lot of one-offs that a lot of these decks don't have. And it's very an interesting list. We're playing a 4/4. We're playing the Rangaroo. We're playing 2 Crobat. Just like that. That engine with the Zoroark and the Crobats are very good. We have to play the Hawlucha for the VMAX damage. Again, the Eldegoss felt very strong. We want to play from the deck, and we want to play from... We want to have access to the deck, and we want to have access to the discard pile. Dancy's very good in the mirror. We'll talk about that, some matchups later. But I felt Palpad was strong. Being able to seeing how fast I ditch cards, being able to play some supporters multiple times, or having more access to them too, multiple times, felt strong. So I was like, Palpad feels good. The Rod feels good. Getting Pokemon back that you ditch. Again, you ditch stuff quickly in this deck. Trekking Shoes, I feel are as a must. Just being able to dig those extra 2 cards every turn or during certain turns can get you there. The key to this, I really felt, is to have the most consistency, and not flutter on any consistency cards. That's why I'm playing 4/4 here. I'm playing 2 of these. This breeds consistency. This breeds consistency. We have 4 Ultra Ball, and we have 4 Quick Ball. I cut the count on the Evo, because we're only evolving into this, really. And we're playing 4 of them, and we're drawing a lot. So the Evo just didn't seem like essential. I felt it was a cuttable card. Playing one is fine. It felt fine. Again, I didn't have to play a high count of boss because I have access to it in my deck and in my discard pile. And I can put them back if I would like as well. So playing a lower count of boss was okay. Because there's some matchups like this doesn't matter. There's some matchups that it's very important. There's some matchups this is really important. So like being able to get that back is great too. Marnie's good. And I think the way I have the deck built, playing a Roxanne is possible. I don't think a lot of decks have the possibilities to play Roxanne's because they ditch cards. And the Roxanne is only good late game and you can't really depend on having it. Well, I can because I have a pal pad and I have access to it from my discard pile. So I get to play a Roxanne. And we'll talk the Valo or Volo in a second. But this card has come very in handy. And then we have these two and the choice pen. Escape rope. And 4 DC. So let me start by saying I think I've had the debate a lot with different energy types in the decks. 4 DC is just going to give you the most consistency. Adding any other type of energy is going to lower the consistency of the deck for non-essential. Like, it doesn't, like, it's not, there's no other, like, attacking with the Gengar with a psychic energy is not, you're going to, like, there's not an optimal way to do that. There's no point in attacking with a Gengar that makes it good. Because even against like a Cramorant or a Sableye or something, if you're attacking with a Gengar and trading 1-for-1, it's not great. It's not great because they can one-shot you. So it's not, they're not one-shotting this. So the idea is you want to attack with this as much as possible by playing any other energy types. You're suffering from that. So playing the most consistently, so being able to dig as much as you can, playing 4 trekking shoes, playing 2 bats, 4 here, and 4 research with access to certain supporters at any time, feels so much stronger. So let's kind of talk matchups. So the most important matchup that I was looking at going into this tournament after the Peoria was the Lost Box. I played the matchup many times. Benching anything small felt bad because they just trade with that. I felt like putting two Zoroarks down with damage counters, obviously, and a support Pokemon early, maybe a Crobat to dig a little more, was most optimal. Forcing them to attack into the Zoroarks and digging very fastly till you get to a Sharon's Care or access to Sharon's Care by even Lumineon. So you not overly digging, but getting yourself in a position where you can make a play with Sharon's Care by turn 3, turn 4 is important. But getting there after that, you can slow the game down. Slow the game down. You're like, okay, I have the Sharon's Care in hand. I have the 2 Zoroarks, and I have a Crobat or whatnot. Some type of support Pokemon. And you know that the Cramorant's going to attack you, or you're going to get the the 120 from the Sableye in early turns. So the idea was they would attack me with that. I would share and care as many times as possible using share and care, using Palpad to share and care again, and then using Eldegoss to share and care again if needed. So having access to 3 share and care in a game really made that matchup very well. So what I found was once you show that type of strategy, they start attacking your Pokemon that you can't share and care that are on the bench. Your Crobats, your Luminions, your Eldegosses. And that's where Valo came through. Being able to Valo those off your bench after they put 120 on it takes a whole turn away from them. Throws their strategy out the window. Takes 2 more turns to get a knockout for them. It became very essential, and you can even ditch one of these if you need to. You play a 4/4, so ditching one of these and then having a Zoroark V and another Turbo in hand and just putting it down is essentially just sharing care. So yeah, Valid just gives you that option to get rid of anything off your bench, or get rid of a whole turn for them. What I felt going into the later turns, because the early turns you're only going against that deck, you're going to hit Sableye, Cramorant. It's going to hit you over and over again. When you get to late turns, the Charizard comes. The Charizard does 250. You already have damage counters on you. So the goal going into a late game turn when you only have 2 prizes or 1 prize left, you want to establish a Zoroark in the active with 1 to 0 damage counters on it, and you can do that by damage pump. Damage punch lets you move the damage off of it. So by putting a Zoroark with 260 or 270 HP in the active, Zoroark cannot knock it out. Or Charizard can't knock it out. It only does 250. They don't play a belt. There's no point of them playing a belt. They manipulate damage counters to set up those 250 knockouts, you know? So most decks don't have damage pump. They're not able to manipulate that damage so that they can't one-shot you, but you do. So that's what you do, setting that up. And I found a lot of success with that. Once you get a Zoroark in the active with 2 prizes left with 260 or above HP, you kind of just win. You hit them with a Roxanne play in those late turns as well. It's really hard for them to make a Charizard again. So like even if they get the first one, go down to 2 prizes, hitting them with the Roxanne with the Zoroark in the active at 260 or 270, it's kind of just game over, because they have to recover their Charizard, which that's very tough, and they have one Flower's gift to do that. They have to recover, so they usually recover with Claire, or I think it's Claire, where they get the Pokemon and their energy back. Boom. Well, at that point, that doesn't win them a game because they need a boss. So at that point, they need to Rod, get energy back, get Charizard, and boss off of a Roxanne to 2, and being able to look at 2 cards. If you lose there, then at least you know you did everything to get there. But odds are that'll set you up for the victory. So that's how we're fighting off the Lost Box. Any V Pokemon, we're trading Vs. We're trading Vs. We're much faster. If we go first, you want to flip heads. Going first in any V, so like Giratina, Palkia, stuff like that. You want to flipping heads significantly makes the matchup better. Getting the first V KO does great. Against Mew, same thing. Um, that's what we're doing. Against, what is it? Kyurem. Kyurem's tough. Kyurem's tough because you need everything. You need the Halucha, you need the Choice Belt, and you need a full bench with all damage counters to take a knockout. Missing that knockout is very crucial. They one shot you no matter what. So, and you set your bench up for their Palkia to one shot you as well. So attacking into one and not taking a KO is very devastating. So again, that's why we play as much consistency as possible to get all these pieces against something like that. Again, you wanna Roxanna at ends of games and stuff like that. Those are the type of game plans we have. We just want to outspeed. This deck outspeeds a lot of decks. You want to go first as often as possible. It significantly makes things better. In a mirror match is I don't know how likely that is. I don't think a lot of people are looking at this deck anymore, and we'll talk about that as well. But a mirror match becomes very stalemate because of this. If you go first, you don't have to put this in the active. If they put it, if they go and then they go and they put this in the active, and the only way around it is rope boss, because obviously, and I mean rope might get you there, but if they have like a Ranger on it, they're just gonna put a Ranger up, and you don't want to give up. You don't want to take one prize for them to take two. So if you don't get the rope boss play, then you want to put your Diancie in the active and let them play greedy. Maybe they take the Diancie kill. Then you take the two prizer and then you outtrade them throughout the game. That's the best option. I play Roxanne. Late game could just win you the game. Yeah. You don't want to play greedy there. You want to wait it out for the two prizer. Taking the one prizer is a death wish. So the escape rope boss play is the play to that. If they play the Empoleon, you're kind of just shit out of luck. They have the advantage in the mirror because the Empoleon turns this off. Turning off this, they can just boss you, and if they go first, they can just boss you. If you go first, then it doesn't matter. Odds are they probably won't even. I mean, you still gotta get around the Diancie. At that point, then they would have to put the Empoleon in the active boss, and then be able to switch again. Which this deck really doesn't have a lot of switching options, so it's like a double switch in one turn. It's not very likely. But yeah, that's kind of how the mirror goes. So let's talk about why a lot of people aren't playing this deck. This deck has almost 3 auto losses. And I say almost because one is Reggie. And Reggie hits you for weakness, which is tough. Getting hit for weakness is always tough. You could play the Dunsparce. I've tried the Dunsparce. I felt like the Dunsparce didn't do enough. They boss kill it, and then you kind of just lose anyways. You can recover it. It's just a lot of digging, trying to do it over. You can get it down. I think your matchup becomes a lot better against Reggie if you do play the Dunsparce. But I still don't think it's favorable with the Dunsparce. So that's kind of an auto loss. It's kind of a tough matchup no matter what you do. And then we have two that are 100% auto losses, and that is Duraludon, because Duraludon's ability can't be hit by Pokemon Special Energy. We only play 4 DCs. Like I said, I don't want to give up the consistency of playing multiple energies for no reason other than a Duraludon at this point. Which, at the end of the day, it's like, how many Duraludons are we going to see? We might not ever see a Duraludon. Then we're playing these cards for no reason. But it is an auto loss. And then the dreaded Miltank. We have no out to the Miltank. We can attack with this, but we do 30? 30? Not very good. Yeah. So, not having an out to the Miltank. Again, we could play Psychic Energy and attack with this. They're not going to have a large bench. We're not going to do damage to them. And we're not getting through 3 Miltanks. We could play the Empoleon. We're not getting through 3 Miltanks with Empoleon. And we're not getting through a Blissey if we're committing just to the Empoleon. So it's just a bad matchup. There's a lot. I'm sure you could make it a decent matchup. You could change this list up and make it a decent matchup and figure it out. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. It could suck. It's just an auto loss, which is horrible. I hate having auto losses. It made me rethink this deck. I tried the water energy. I've tried the Empoleon and stuff, and I found it just isn't good enough. Without, like, over-committing to a strategy to beat, like, a Miltank or to beat a Duraludon, playing 4 to 5 energies or something of that method. It just makes every other matchup tougher. Your deck a lot less consistent, and you kind of just have to eat these auto losses. And I talked to Drew about it, and Drew's off the deck. He just doesn't think the deck's very good. And we both agreed. We came to a conclusion that the deck could hit great matchups and go 9-0. Or it could hit your auto losses and just lose. So that's the conclusion at this point, as of today, is that I will be playing this deck because I've committed so much time to it, trying to commit myself to something else and learn another deck. As prepared as I am to play this deck, I don't think it's possible to go into a tournament confidently, as confident I am going into a tournament with something like this with only 3 or 4 days left. So someone like Drew or Rahul or something like that, they're very good players. They can just switch off decks, have no problem, move on. I personally feel like I need to understand my deck very well to compete at the highest level. So I don't want to do that. So we're on a pray for good matchups deck, basically. That's why we come to a conclusion. This is a pray for good matchups deck. Hopefully we avoid our auto losses, and we play well. And putting in the reps, you can see, I don't know, 5,000. If you look up my ladder, I guess we can kind of look up my ladder. Um, we're all the way up here already. We're still 6 days left. And we've played a lot of games, you know. So, the times is being put in. The games are being played. The adjustments are being made. We look at Limitless every day, you know. You go to Limitless every day and make small adjustments, but at this point, I feel like we kind of see where the meta's at, and what decks are played. There's a few decks that are going to give us auto losses. There's a few decks that we have very great matchups against, such as Mew, such as our Gudras, any two prizer or three prizer deck. We have really good matchups, even better matchups when we win the coin flip and go first. So those are the kind of matchups we want to see. The one prizes, we have a good strategy, we win over that. Those are winnable matchups. Lost Box is definitely a winnable matchup. The small text that I've made to beat that list, the time I put into that matchup, I have a strategy going into it. I understand my strategy, and there's not many ways to avoid that strategy. You can play this deck very greedy and just lose. But, yeah. These are kind of thoughts, and like I'm also like just reaching out to people. I'm reaching out to players like Sosa. I'm reaching out to players like Bennett, Rahul, Xander, my locals. I'm reaching out to players. I'm talking Pokemon as much as I can. What are we thinking? What do you guys think the meta's going on? I think these little things are just good. It's good to just be talking Pokemon with your friends, getting ideas, looking at Limitless, even at the small tournaments, just seeing what people are playing. My friend Josh Hatter Josh Bangle, my bad. He just made a top, like there's only 20 people in the tournament, but he got second place with Kyurem, Urshifu, VMAX, Rapid Strike. Being able to use the Kyurem to power up the Urshifu in one turn, and being able to max flow multiple times per, like every turn, very strong. Something to look at, you know. Would that crush us? That might just crush us. Both of those Pokemon have very high HP. Both of them need everything to knock out. He could just kill the Hawlucha, and then we have issues. So some stuff like that. It's not, you don't want to start overthinking it, but it's just stuff to look at. Like, oh, what do I approach if I hit something like that? Because you will hit stuff like that. I think we're going into a tournament that the diversity is going to be, we're going to see a lot of diverse decks. We're going to see, you might hit 9 different decks. That's why, like, again, I'm not too worried about the big auto losses that I have. I have like 3 auto losses, not super worried about them, because I think that the meta is super diverse, and I don't think I'll hit, the odds of hitting those matchups are low. Multiple times, you know? Could I see a Duraludon? Yes. Happens. I could see a Blissey. I could see that. Or I could not see them at all. I could see myself seeing a couple Zoroarks, couple Lost Boxes, some Giratinas, some Gudras. Like, there's so many decks that could win the tournament. Any of those decks could win the tournament. That's how this meta is kind of shifting, to see that all these decks are doing pretty well. So I wouldn't be surprised if anything winning, unless it's just out of the blue. I think a lot of these decks are very good. I think Gudra's good. I think Zoroark's good. Intel with Palkia with Kyurem, Lost Box, Giratina. All these decks are decent. Regis could win. So there's like 6 to 7 decks that could possibly win the tournament, and I don't think anyone would be surprised if any of those decks won, which is really cool. Which gives you the opportunity to play into auto losses, you know? Don't tech out your deck, play more consistency. And like, don't cut any consistency for any techs. Yes, I do play like the Valo and I play a Roxanne and stuff, but I don't cut my 4 research for it. I don't cut my 4 trekking shoes, my 4 quick ball, my 4 ultra ball. I don't cut any of this for that. I still have my 2 bats. I have my 4/4 Zoroark. These are the most consistent cards in the deck. The 4 pump, the 4 stadiums. Like, I'm not cutting any like essential pieces to the deck for any type of tech. And I think going into this tournament, playing Zoroark, I think that's the best way to go about it. Teching for certain matchups is just going to be tough because I think the meta is too diverse, and you're probably going to see 7 to 9 different decks in day 1. So teching is just not the play at this point. But yeah, it's kind of where I'm at. I hope that helped if you stuck around and listened to this and like kind of got an idea of like where my head was at, the type of stuff I do going into tournaments. I'm always talking Pokemon. I'm hitting up a lot of Pokemon friends, even if a lot of like top players will, like, even if you like DM them on Twitter or wherever, social media, these guys love to talk Pokemon. So like, if you have questions, stuff, you can always hit them up. You can write me. I'm down. I'm always down to talk Pokemon. Just getting more insight and talking to people about Pokemon helps you get better. So talking Pokemon's great. Looking at decks that did well, watching Limitless results every day, seeing what's doing well. Like Blissey came out of nowhere. Now we see that's an auto loss. It sucks. Like after Peoria, that wasn't really a thought. And then we look, it's doing pretty well. People are going to play it. We have another auto loss. Kind of hurts our deck. Kind of sucks. And I think a lot of people are jumping off the deck because of certain auto losses and inconsistencies and stuff like that with the deck. And that's like a development over the last 2 weeks. As a super like high competitive player, I think that's smarter. Jump off the list, do this. Me myself, I want to commit to it because I put so much time and effort into it. I know the deck in and out. I don't feel like I'm going to misplay as much playing this deck than I would trying to pick up a deck that probably is a better option, but I'm not going to play it as optimal. I want to go into this tournament playing as optimal as possible. So we're going to stick with this. We might tweak some cards. For right now, I think this is my solid 60. Feel free to steal it, chest it out. Yeah, tell me what you guys think. Leave a comment down below. I really appreciate everybody listening, watching, all that cool stuff. But yeah, for now, I'm gonna scoop it up.